Welcome to Podcast on the Brink, your weekly dose of Indiana basketball news and discussion, brought to you by the Assembly Call and Inside the Hall. I'm your host, Jerod Morris. Join me live at assemblycall.com every Thursday night and immediately following every IU game for our live IU postgame show. And visit InsideTheHall.com for complete coverage of IU basketball and to join the discussion in the Inside the Hall Premium Forum.
Hoosier fans, it's Indiana basketball time. IU Basketball Mini-Series tickets are now available in 6-game or 3-game ticket packages, as well as individual games. This is your chance to check out the Hoosiers inside beautiful Simon Scott Assembly Hall. For more information, call or text 812-855-4006 or visit IUHoosiers.com. Go IU.
On this week's edition of Podcast on the Brink, it is mailbag time. Just as we did before Thanksgiving, here with Christmas on the way next week, we decided to dip into the mailbag to answer the questions that are on your mind. So we put out a call for questions in the Inside the Hall Premium Forum and got a lot of good ones, as we always do. So we greatly appreciate those of you who submitted questions. We got to almost all of them. We weren't able to get to all of them, but we did get to most of them. A lot of really good questions. We talk about Indiana potentially playing with more pick and roll situations or giving Romeo more pick and roll situations. What Juwan Morgan needs to do to put himself in a position to get drafted. What Indiana's recruiting strategy would be if they get a commitment from Keion Brooks. One area of improvement that Indiana really needs to make. Why is Romeo wearing that bandage on his shooting hand? And others. We look ahead to the January schedule. It's really tough. What would be kind of reasonable? What would be good? And then we end with a fun question, which is, what is one gift that we would give Archie if we could give him anything at all? So we kind of have some fun with that one. So a fun edition here of Podcast on the Brink, as it always is, when we get to dip into the audio mailbag. Before we start answering your questions, I do want to remind everybody about our sponsors at Home Field. And this is an extremely important reminder because we're recording this on December 18th. It'll be published later this afternoon. But December 19th, that is Wednesday, that is the deadline for Christmas delivery for items from Home Field. So at Home Field, this is where, as we've been telling you, you'll find the most comfortable, the most unique licensed IU apparel anywhere. It was started by an IU grad. All of their apparel is designed and printed out of Indianapolis. And so if you're still in need of some Christmas gifts for the IU fan in your life, this is the first place that you should stop and check out some of the stuff that they have. I've been recommending over and over again the Tri-Blend Fleece hoodie, which I love. I wore it all day yesterday. It's amazing. It is so comfortable. I think the logo design is really cool. They, it's not just that one, though. They have others. They have T-shirts, other shirts. They have a lot of really cool vintage IU designs, old school designs that you can't find anywhere else. So for the IU diehard in your life, this is a place to go check out. It's homefieldapparel.com. And remember that you need to place your order by the 19th to ensure Christmas delivery. And use the promo code BRINK, B-R-I-N-K, at checkout. That way you will get 15% off your first order. So homefieldapparel.com, promo code BRINK for 15% off your first order. Home Field, wear one for the team. And now, here is the mailbag, the audio mailbag with me and Alex Bozich. Let's get to it. It is mailbag time, Alex, with Christmas, the holiday season coming up, kind of like we did back before Thanksgiving. Rounded up some questions from the Premium Forum and a few submitted via voicemail, and take some time today and answer the burning questions that are on Inside the Hall readers' minds.
Is the first question going to be, will Indiana play 2 games this week that aren't decided by one possession?
Oh boy,
because I'd love to know the answer to that.
Can you imagine? so much of the good feeling that we've built over the last 4 games would immediately go away. But surely, is there any reason?
I'm saying, is this finally the week that they're going to play some games that aren't decided by one possession?
Yeah, they better.
Right, exactly.
They better. That would be a nice lump of a pre-Christmas lump of coal for IU fans if either of these games are close. So
Right.
hopefully they are not. All right, well, let's just hop right in here. We'll start with the questions that were submitted via voicemail, and we got a bunch of them, so we'll try and get to as many of them as we can. I doubt we'll get to all of them, but we will do our best. Okay, here is the first question from Vince.
Hey, Jerod and Alex. This is Vince from the Premium Forum. And after your conversation on Banner Monday a while back about Romeo's efficiency out of pick and roll situations, I was wondering what you guys thought about pick and roll with Romeo and Evan as a way to kind of get Fitzner going a little bit, either as the roll man or the pick and pop man. Do you think he's kind of shown enough court savvy to indicate that he might thrive in that situation? Just interested in hearing your thoughts. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Thanks for doing this. Bye-bye.
So, when I heard this question, there's kind of two parts, right? You've got pick and rolls with Romeo, and I am all in for as many pick and rolls with Romeo as possible because he is currently in the 97th percentile in terms of efficiency in pick and roll situations. Indiana's only run about 10% of their offense as pick and rolls, and he's been the guy who has done it the majority of time. I'd certainly like to see him in a lot of them. And I think, the hypothesis of having Evan, be the screener because of his ability to pop and make a three and then also, roll and be a pretty skilled guy is interesting. I would prefer it with Juwan as much as possible, but I think Evan is an interesting other option because of his ability to pull that defender away and keep the lane clear for Romeo. What do you think, both about the idea of getting Romeo involved in more pick and roll actions and about Evan as a good screener for those situations?
Yeah, I agree with you on Romeo in terms of the getting him involved in more pick and roll actions. He did that a lot in high school and was obviously one of the top scorers ever in Indiana high school basketball history. And it's an action that he's really comfortable with and I think can thrive in. I think it's something we're going to see more of as the season goes along. Archie kind of alluded to it last night a little bit on his radio show, and that kind of they want to put him in some different situations than what we've seen so far. And I think that's something that will happen as the season goes along. As far as Fitzner, Romeo specifically with Fitzner in pick and rolls, I don't necessarily think it has to be that, but I do think if Fitzner is going to play regularly, he's going to have to bring something offensively on a game-to-game basis, because if you watched the Butler game close enough, a couple of those possessions where he was playing post defense and playing around the basket on some rebounding situations, he just got physically overpowered, and I think that's going to be more common in the Big Ten. And so I think if he's going to continue to have a rotation spot or be a guy that plays 10, 15 minutes a game, he's going to need to contribute something offensively, because I don't think right now he's one of this team's 6, 7, 8 best defensive players. But his efficiency and ability to space the floor is something that I know that Ben wrote about a couple weeks ago on Inside the Hall and has talked about a lot, and I think is a valuable tool. But I don't necessarily think it has to be with Romeo. I think that can be something he does with anybody. And if you go back and Inside the Hall and look when Fitzner was originally signed, I did a couple of breakdown videos in terms of just how he scored primarily at St. Mary's, and it was pick and pop, pick and roll. He even caught the ball a little bit, took a couple dribbles, and took some pull-up shots. And so, I think right now the biggest thing is just kind of getting him back into rhythm. Maybe these 2 games this week can be a situation where he kind of gets some confidence back and feels like he can let it fly from perimeter right now, because right now it just doesn't seem like, just based on the last couple of games, he's playing with all that much confidence. So I think anything you can do to get his feet under him, make him comfortable, and get him opportunities is going to be a positive moving forward.
I want to pick up another question that was submitted inside the Premium Forum, and all these questions, we put out the call for questions in the Premium Forum. Definitely something that you should consider, forum.insidethehall.com, either for yourself or get a membership as a gift for the IU fan in your life, because it's a great place to discuss IU basketball all season long. But we had another question from Madros in there. It kind of goes along with this. Why haven't we seen more action involving Juwan and Romeo directly, whether inside out or pick and roll? Do you think that, look, clearly Archie knows that Romeo is great in pick and roll situations. The data shows that Romeo is great in pick and roll situations. And he clearly knows that Juwan is also good, as the screener in those situations, and that you put those 2 guys together, it's going to be pretty lethal. Do you think it's something where that just hasn't necessarily, that part of the offense hasn't been installed? Is he slow playing it to let other offensive options open up because he knows that that's going to be there come Big Ten play? Like, why do you think we haven't seen more of that when it seems like a pretty obvious place to go when you need offense?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about this, I think, on our previous episode, just about how Archie Miller is not a coach who's going to install everything he's going to do on day one of practice or the first couple of weeks. It's going to be a gradual build-up. So right now, I think things are pretty simple, but I think you're going to start to see more wrinkles come to the offense as we move along here and this team gets more comfortable. The other thing I'll say is, just based on what I saw last game, and I was sitting right there on the baseline, the communication between Romeo and Juwan isn't the best right now in terms of kind of knowing where the other one wants to be on a particular play. They had a couple of mix-ups on passes the last game. I think the two combined for 9 of IU's 15 or 16 turnovers.
Yeah.
And so, as fun as it is to say, why don't we, why doesn't IU run pick and rolls for Romeo and Juwan every time down? It's also something where the two guys have to be comfortable enough to and have a feel of what the other one's going to do. Otherwise, you're going to kind of see some sloppy plays like we saw last week. So I think it's going to be a situation where we're going to see different things as Big Ten season gets here. I don't necessarily think IU has deployed everything that it has in its tool bag. You don't really want to do that at this point of the season because the Big Ten is so well scouted. If you're showing everything you got now, every team is going to kind of know what you're going to do. And so I think it's going to be a situation where IU kind of builds upon its core principles and adds some different things. And, the offense to me right now is just not, it's still, I think, ranked in the top 40 in the country. So I think when some people are saying, well, why the offense is terrible, well, it's not that bad. It's just something I think that can become more crisp and more free flowing to an extent. Sometimes it just kind of looks like guys are confused, don't know what they want to do. And you have to remember this is, a team that's playing 2 freshman guards that have played 11 college games too. So it's a comfort thing, I think, more than anything. But I definitely think that you're going to see more situations where Romeo and Juwan are kind of playing the 2-man game at times once we get into kind of the meat of the Big Ten schedule.
Yeah, I mean, the offensive ranking is, fine, I suppose, for this point in the season. You certainly hope it'll improve. I would say a big part of that is you have 2 really unique offensive talents in Romeo and Juwan that can, score in so many different ways. Plus, you have a lot of guys who are shooting the 3 a little bit better than you expected. Not Romeo and Devontae, they're struggling with it, but Al and Rob and Juwan, those guys making more 3s than you would expect. All those things are leading to an offense that I think at times maybe the numbers are more efficient than when we look at it than it kind of feels at times, just because of the turnovers and, some of the lulls and some of the times where they seem to struggle to get into what they're doing. But, there's a lot of room to grow as well. And I think that's something that should be a source of optimism moving forward. Because like you said, I think more things will be installed. They'll get more comfortable. And there's still a very high ceiling for the offense, I think. Because I think what we've seen from it so far is the floor. And that's still pretty good.
And plus the turnovers are just kind of the thing that's really holding it back right now. If you look at the 2-point field goal percentage, it's elite. You look at the 3-point percentage, it's good enough. If they just take care of the ball a little bit better, get the turnover percentage even down to the 17, 18% range, I think that's going to give a pretty significant, that's 2 or 3, maybe 2 or 3 extra possessions you have per game where you're actually doing something like making a 3 or getting fouled or, shooting a layup, as opposed to right now, it's just, 1 out of every 5 possessions you're throwing the ball away. That's
throwing it out of bounds, dribbling off your leg.
to still be ranked in the top 40 in offensive efficiency with that bad of a turnover percentage just kind of shows you, if this team can just kind of hone in on that a little bit, it can make a significant jump.
Sounds like a conversation lifted from a podcast from 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go on to our next question here. Hey, before we get to the next question, I just want to hop in real quick and remind you to check out our friends at SeatGeek. Buying tickets online, as we've talked about, it can be a complicated process. It can be difficult. It's not always clear who you should trust. It's not always clear where you should go. Well, SeatGeek is the place to go. They fully guarantee all the ticket purchases on their site. So if anything happens, you know that you're covered, which is huge peace of mind. Plus, they bring together tickets from around the web, and they show you a value, like a grade, based on the value. So you have an easy, clear, immediate visual indicator for how good of a value this ticket is, based on where you're sitting, what the price is, am I getting good bang for my buck? That is incredibly helpful, incredibly useful when you're out there buying tickets online. So they have a great app, which you can download. I use the app. It's on my phone. I use it to buy concert tickets. I use it to browse for sports tickets. Anything. It makes the process really, really simple. And that's what you're looking for when you're buying tickets. You want it to be simple. You want to be able to find the best value for all the tickets to the events that you want. And you want to know that when you make your purchase, it's guaranteed and there will be someone there to have your back in case anything happens. And I know SeatGeek does that because listeners to this show, listeners to the Assembly Call, have let me know when there has been an issue, and SeatGeek has always taken care of it to their satisfaction, which is why I feel 100% comfortable recommending them to you here on the show. So get the SeatGeek app, download it today, use the promo code BRINK when you purchase, BRINK, and you will get $10 off your first purchase. And use SeatGeek. Maybe you want to get tickets to some of these games over the holiday break, to the Illinois game, to the upcoming Big Ten schedule. So many great IU games to get tickets for, and SeatGeek is the place that you should go to get those tickets. Promo code BRINK, BRINK. Use the SeatGeek app. SeatGeek, life's an event. We have the tickets. And now, here's the next question from Archie1.
Hey, Jerod and Alex, this is Archie1. Questions about Juwan Morgan and what you think he needs to do to, maybe turn into a second-round pick in the NBA draft. He's shooting the ball really well from three this year. I think his numbers last year were a little bit skewed because he was pretty abysmal during the non-conference, but I thought he shot the ball pretty well from three last year during conference play, and he's amazing. He's a really good shot blocker and rebounder as well. So what do you think he needs to do to show the rest of the year to, maybe slide into the mid to late second round in the upcoming NBA draft? Thank you very much, guys. Have a good one.
Yeah, those numbers check out. Juwan last year shot 30% overall from three, but in Big Ten play it was 37.8%, so he was certainly better. I think the obvious answer to this question is he's got to keep shooting the three like he is. I mean, if he shoots 48% all season long, that's going to make NBA teams take a much longer, harder look at him, I think, because the thing that he is so good at, that he is elite and, one of the best that Indiana has ever seen, his 2-point field goal percentage, his ability to score in the post, his ability to take advantage of, bigger guys with his quickness, with his guile down low, that's not really something that's going to translate to the NBA. So his greatest skill at the college level isn't something that he's going to be able to do much in the NBA. He's going to have to face the basket. He's going to have to shoot. He's a great passer out of the post. But again, is he going to get a lot of those opportunities in the NBA? So can he create facing the basket? And then can he be a versatile enough defender to be able to guard, three positions, maybe more, be able to, to switch and not, really be taken advantage of on the wing. So to me, those are the things that he has to show. Obviously, supernova performances like what he had in the Crossroads Classic, those are going to get everybody's attention. And if the 3-point shooting sustains, that'll be huge. But some of those other skills where he's facing the basket, I think, need to continue so people can see what kind of role he'll have offensively at the next level.
Yeah, I think he also needs to show that he can defend a little bit on the perimeter and against quicker guys, because he's not going to be in the NBA playing the five, which is what he's playing right now for the most part at IU. I mean, he's 6'7", maybe 6'8" at the most. And in the NBA, that's you're guarding threes and maybe some fours, depending on the team you're going against. And threes in the NBA are handling the ball off the wing. They're shooting threes. They're, cutting to the basket, making moves. And as good of a defender as Juwan has been over his career, I don't think he's been great overall this year so far, at least. So I'd like to see him kind of just turn it up a notch there defensively the rest of the year. Not saying he's been bad. I just think there's room for improvement. And I'd also like to see, his free throw shooting continue to be a factor, because if he can, I think he's something like 9 out of his last 10 from the line. He mentioned he's kind of figured something out there, but I think that's going to make, the more big performances like he had the other day is kind of going to continue to open more eyes in terms of the NBA, and anything he can do to kind of continue to bolster his numbers. And I think that's pretty much an easy thing. I don't think he's going to continue to shoot 48% on threes. I think that's pretty tough ask of anybody. I think Watford maybe did his last year, but that was on a team with Oladipo and Zeller, and he was basically just kind of spotting up and getting wide open looks. I don't know that after the Butler game,
48.4% for Watford, sixth in the country.
Yeah. So, and that was on a team with 2 top 4 picks. So that was a really crazy year in numbers. And even he didn't get drafted or even really sniff the NBA. I mean, he's been a G League guy pretty much his whole career. So that kind of shows you how tough it is. But, I just think Juwan just has to keep doing the little things. And really, I don't necessarily think him being picked in the second round is going to be any different than him getting a free agent contract and a camp invite. I mean, that second round pick in the NBA is not guaranteed anything. It's more about finding the right situation, or maybe latching on somewhere on a 2-way contract and with a team that's kind of really invested in developing you for the long term.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good shot blocker. He's a good rebounder. Those things will certainly help him. But I think obviously continuing to shoot well and just, showing, and what you said about the defense was interesting, because I think at times he's been outstanding defensively. Like, he was great defensively in the Marquette game, and he has spurts. Mm-hmm. But I think at times also he's carried such a heavy offensive load. Not that he coasts defensively, but you can tell sometimes he's trying to catch a little bit of a breather defensively. And so that, and from a quickness standpoint, when he does get switched out and has to go on the perimeter, he can get exposed a little bit out there. But he's been mostly good, but I kind of agree with you that there have been a few moments where he's capable of a little bit more on that end. And maybe as we get more depth and he's able to get a few more breathers here and there, he'll be able to do that more consistently.
Yeah, I mean, the shot blocking is, I don't know how much that NBA teams are going to care about that, because he's not going to be really playing a whole lot at the rim trying to block shots. I mean, he's going to be,
yeah, but he could be. I mean, but from the
right,
it shows that he can be. Ben and I talked about this on Banner Monday, that he can be a disruptive defender. It's kind of the difference between like what OG Anunoby does defensively and what Justin Smith does. Justin Smith, a very fundamentally sound defender. OG Anunoby, disruptive with the steals and the blocks and the activity. And so I think at least Juwan showing that. No, he won't be able to block centers, but he's got some shot blocking instincts that'll at least help on some shorter guys.
I guess my whole point on his defense is that at the next level he's going to be guarding more guys that are mobile and play more towards the perimeter. So he's got to be able to stay in front of those kind of guys. Otherwise, he's look at Draymond Green. I mean, he's undersized too, but he's made pretty much he's going to make $100 million at least on his next contract, because he's an elite defender, and it's not like he's a ridiculous athlete or anything like that. He's just kind of honed in and kind of made that his calling card, and he can also step out and make threes, and he's on a team with other great players, and that's kind of, there's very few guys that are going to go to the NBA and become a superstar. So what 1 or 2 kind of skills can you really develop that are going to make you stick around for a while? And I think Juwan has to have his calling card be defense overall and ability to step out and knock down shots, and he has a chance to make it.
Draymond Green is a guy that Juwan, gets compared to a lot when you kind of project him forward for the NBA. His stats his senior year, his defensive rebounding percentage is 28.5%, which is elite of the elite. He was 7th in the country. He shot 38.8% on 134 three-point attempts that year, and he also had a really high assist rate. So those are all numbers. Juwan won't touch the defensive rebounding rate or the assist rate. Those are much higher than he'll get. And he didn't get as many steals as Draymond did either. And those tend to be things that will translate to the next level. The shooting, we'll see. He might be able to match that. We'll see.
Yeah, he's been a good rebounder, but he's never been an elite rebounder. I think that's kind of another thing. If he was averaging a double-double or getting, 10, 11 rebounds a game, I think that would be another kind of feather in his cap. But I think last year he was outside of the top 10 in conference play in both offensive and defensive rebounding percentage. And so, I mean, we'll see what when conference play heats back up, how he kind of does on the glass. But I think that's another important thing for him.
Yep. All right. Next question
from
Hi, Jared
Tom. And Alex. I just want you to know, first of all, we all appreciate these podcasts and the mailbag. So thanks for that. My question is, if Keion commits to IU, That would, of course, fill the open scholarships with the caveat that Romeo is going to go pro after his freshman year. Do you see IU pursuing anybody else, either recruiting from high school or a grad transfer thing on that order? And on another level, another way to ask that is, do you see the staff feeling there's another need for that class that staff might need to fill later?
That question from Tom Jameson. What do you think about Indiana's recruiting strategy if they end up getting Keion?
Well, I don't think there's any question that Romeo Langford is going to be in the draft. So I think in terms of filling the spot, I think the numbers are going to work out just fine. Beyond that, there hasn't really been much attrition since Archie Miller took over. I mean, looking back, I think Grant Galen left. That was shortly after he took over the job, and Curtis Jones transferred midway through last year. So a spot would have to open up in order for them to pursue another player. But I think you kind of keep tabs on everything from afar. You kind of look at the grad transfer guard market potentially to see what's out there. And then if somebody does make a move or decide that they want to pursue something else, then you kind of have your list of guys that you want to look at. I think the guard transfer market is going to be something that every year is going to be topical. It's going to depend on who's out there and who's available. But the other guy, I think, he's been mentioned quite a bit is Harlan Beverly, the kid who's playing down at Montverde Academy that Indiana's been mentioned with a little bit. We'll see if anything develops there. He's I think playing his recruitment really slow. Nothing's going to happen till the spring. So maybe by then Indiana's going to have a better idea of who's back and what the roster is going to be looking like for next year. It's pretty I mean, I don't know if you're surprised by this, Jarrett, but the Indiana's roster has been pretty solid in terms of guys sticking around. It's quite a departure from what it was in the past, and so it's kind of hard. In the past they would have said, "Oh, definitely 2 guys are transferring, so there's going to be extra spots," but now you just don't necessarily feel that way.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, that doesn't mean that it won't happen. Even at the most stable programs, it happens. And so I think you're right. I would think, many coaches have said it, but you never stop recruiting. It's a 365-day thing. So I'm sure they'll keep tabs on everybody, see what options are there. And Archie and his staff, they seem like they have a plan for everything. So I'm sure they'll have a plan for if someone decides to leave, and they'll execute on it. But yeah, it feels pretty good to not just kind of be saying, okay, who's it going to be? It's just kind of waiting to see if it will happen. And I think that's a better spot to be in than where we were before. All right, next question. Here we go.
Hey, Jerod and Alex. It's Waffy82 from the Premium Forum. I'm looking forward to the holiday mailbag, and happy holidays to you guys. My question is, over this break, if there was one area or statistic we could improve on, which would you guys pick? And given where we are now, such as our national ranking, how good do you think we should be?
So the obvious one here is one that we have talked about, which is the offensive turnover percentage. Indiana turning it over right now on 20.9% of possessions. That is 273rd in the country. That is not good. Certainly, a lot of room to grow there. Same with free throw shooting, where it's been better, but it's still 298th in the country at 64.3%. And we've talked about those a ton. So maybe to make this question more fun, outside of those two, the turnovers and the free throws, which we know are the biggest issues, is there another statistic or another area of improvement that you think would really move the needle for this IU team?
Wow. I don't. Oh, man, that's tough. I would say, looking kind of at the numbers right now, I don't. The 3-point defense is good. The 2-point defense to me is not as good as maybe I thought it was going to be. They're 126th in the country, so maybe
that's the one.
Defending the paint a little bit better is one thing I'm looking at, and I don't know if this is something that's ever going to get better this season because it's not really an emphasis in terms of how Indiana plays. But if they could generate just a little bit more on second chance points, I mean, they're 209th in offensive rebounding percentage. That to me is another thing. But with the way Archie plays and how much he emphasizes getting back and getting set on defense and not giving up anything in transition. I just don't know that that's something that's particularly going to be a priority to get better at, but it would at least be, I think, advantageous for them on some upcoming road games. Shots aren't going to be falling from the perimeter, so how are they going to generate points? And I think that's one area you look at and say, is there maybe one guy we can kind of unleash on the offensive glass and at least see what happens in those situations?
Yeah, you hit on the one for me that stood out, which is the 2-point defense. Now, obviously, the Duke game, the Arkansas game, certainly skewed that in the negative. And not that Indiana didn't have a part in that. I mean, they didn't defend twos very well. They've been better in other games, but there have still been times where it's felt like, whether because Juwan is trying to defend without fouling or because we've been in foul trouble, that other teams have been able to shoot a pretty high percentage on twos. There was a really interesting article in The Athletic today. We're recording this on Tuesday by Ken Pomeroy. And he basically puts this out every year talking about 3-point defense and how there's so much randomness in 3-point defense. And you look at Indiana's current statistic for 3-point defense, 29.2%, which is outstanding. It's especially outstanding given the context of what it was last year, 40th in the country. So that is very good. But, one of the things that Ken found was that you can predict with a higher degree of likelihood of success what a team's future 3-point defense will be from their current 2-point defense instead of their 3-point defense, which I thought was pretty telling. And so, I think one thing that we need to keep in mind is, as positive as things have been for Indiana's 9-2, everything's been pretty good. There are a couple of numbers that are probably due for some regression. That 3-point percentage, Indiana's not going to hold opponents to 29.2% all year. Right now opponents are shooting 61.2% from the line against Indiana. That's, 8th best in the country or 8th worst, however you want to look at it. That's not going to continue. So, to your point, what a defense can control more than any other stat is their 2-point defense. And that's actually the one element of the defense that isn't elite right now, which is kind of ironic given the new, kind of mentality of this program. And so I'm sure that's probably one Archie looks at and wants to improve. And I agree that number right there will probably dictate more about how good the defense is moving forward than any of the other ones. So definitely some room for improvement there.
The other thing is you look at the schedule they've played overall so far. I mean, I think I tweeted this yesterday. Their non-conference strength of schedule was in the top 100, so they've played pretty good teams. I mean, now that's going to obviously be the case almost every night in the Big Ten. You're going to be playing good teams, but if you look at their conference-only stats on Ken Pom, and I know it's only 2 games, but their 2-point percentage defense 47.1, which is 6th in the league. I think they can probably live with that or something like it when they get into league play. Now, obviously, they played 2 of the lower tier teams, but looking back at their numbers last year, they were 48.1%, 2-point field goal percentage defense. They were 4th in the conference. So I think they're right kind of around maybe where they need to be with a little improvement. And so I agree with you. I mean, they've obviously been fortunate to win all these close games that they have so far. That's kind of another thing that unfortunately, as the season goes along, you're not going to win every close game that you're in. I think, obviously they lost the Arkansas one, but they've been on fire since then in terms of winning close games. So anything you can do to kind of cut things off inside the paint is going to be good because, like you said, you can't really control, as we saw with Indiana State in the Fort Wayne games last year, you can't control the weirdness of 3-point field goal shooting by your opponent at times.
Yes, that is for sure. Okay, so we've got some other questions here. I'll read them. Question from Gregory, and I think we might have covered this at some point too, but why is Romeo wearing a big bandage on his shooting hand? Is he injured? Obviously, he's not wearing it as a fashion statement. Is he going to be wearing it the entire year? Greg sounds a little bit concerned about the bandage on Romeo's hand. Other people have asked me this too. What's the story there? This is something that dates back to high school, right?
Yeah, it's definitely. He wore something last year in New Albany, and I think if you remember back to like the end of summer when the guys went home for a couple of weeks, there was like a picture that circulated of Romeo kind of with like almost like a hard cast type of thing on his hand, and everyone freaked out. I just think he's, I don't necessarily, if it was serious, he obviously wouldn't be playing, but I think it's just kind of a support mechanism and something he's gotten used to at this point. But I wouldn't be too concerned about it. He's he had games last year at New Albany where he would kind of look down at it and move it around, and it was almost like a slight discomfort. But I don't think that's anything that's painful or anything that's going to hold him out. So,
do you think you could explain it all, his struggles from downtown, or no?
Maybe a little bit, but the thing about Romeo is he's very much a scorer and not a shooter. And what I mean by that is he's a guy who, when he gets going, he's on, but he's not a guy that just walks off the bus and is automatically just hitting every shot. We kind of saw it in the Penn State game, kind of a snowball effect, right? He hits one shot and then when he hits a couple shots, that's when you want to just put him in the best position to keep getting the ball, because he's a guy that can reel off 10 or 15 really quick, but he's not a guy that I don't think is ever going to shoot 40 or 45% on 3-pointers. That's just not. Now, I do think that NBA teams are going to look at his percentage right now and say 22%. How's that going to translate to a deeper line and the game here? But I think everything else that he does is just so elite that they're probably going to be willing to overlook that for the most part, and think that they're going to be able to improve it at the next level. But he's very much just kind of a rhythm player and a guy who can knock shots down in succession when he gets going, but he's not just a kind of a dead-eye marksman like a J.J. Redick or somebody like that.
Yep. All right, from Oleman, what record do you project as winning the conference this year? And now that teams are coming into view, what record do you project for IU in the conference this year?
I picked Michigan before the year to win. I think right now realistic for them is 15-5 or 14-6. Jerod, thoughts on that?
I was going to say, I think 15-5 probably seems the most likely. I think if you kind of if anybody gets to 16, they're going to win the conference, and they would seem like the team that's most likely. So that'll be interesting, is can anybody get to that number? KenPom, as great as Michigan has been so far this year, their KenPom prediction is only 14-6, which I think just shows you how difficult the conference is going to be. So yeah, I would, if I were betting, I would bet 15-5 wins it, and so that's why I think if anybody can get to 16, whether because they're just so dominant, or they get the ball's bouncing their way and the schedule is favorable for them, I don't think anybody's going to get past that.
Yeah, I don't think I can. I'm trying to remember when we did the over/under podcast what we picked for IU. I think 11 or 12 wins is probably where I would probably go with 12. To me,
that's what the KenPom prediction is right now.
Yeah, it's gonna come down to road games, in particular Iowa, Northwestern, Minnesota, Rutgers, and Illinois. Those are the main ones I look at. I'm trying to think who else they play on the road. Those are the ones I look at and say
Purdue.
That'll be tough. Purdue's even at home.
It'll be tough.
Tough, right? But those 5 I named, if they can win 3 of those, which 3 or 4 of them, I think they're in pretty good shape to win 12 or more league games. But it's, as you saw with Penn State, nothing's going to be easy. Even Rutgers and Illinois, I'm sure are going to beat somebody at home this year. So you just got to hope it's not your team, whoever that is.
Yeah. And 12-8 doesn't sound all that great, but 12 wins in the conference this year would be a real achievement.
Yeah, you just hope that like 6 of them aren't Northwestern, Rutgers, and Illinois. I do think one thing Indiana got kind of in its favor this year is, playing Rutgers and Illinois combined 4 times is pretty advantageous overall. And the 3 single play road games, I know they got Ohio State, Nebraska, and who is the other one that's a pretty good team is a single play road game or single play home game?
Wisconsin.
There you go. That's
nice.
that's an opportunity, right? Imagine if they had to play those teams on the road only, or had to play those teams twice. That the schedule to me, as brutal as it is at the beginning, if they can just kind of stay above water, they have a chance to really kind of go on a run in February and maybe win 12 or 13 league games.
Yeah, and schedule being nice, it's all relative. That's still 12 games that are A quality according to Ken Palm, and 4 that are B. So that is a tough remaining schedule for Indiana. They've got these 3 games coming up: Central Arkansas, Jacksonville, Illinois, that don't register on that scale, and then every other game except for their last one against Rutgers is an A or a B game. That's tough.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting too. I think for the Big Ten at large. I mean, there's going to be some teams like right now, like Maryland is a team that's ranked, but they haven't really done anything in the non-conference. What are they going to? Are they going to be able to get in the tournament if they only win like 10 Big Ten? There's going to be like a ton of teams. A glut of teams in the middle, I feel like that are going to be between like 9, 10, 11 wins.
Yep.
So it's going to come down to who you beat. And I mean, the Pac-12 being as horrible as it is, there's just there's going to be like a ton of bids up for grabs. I mean, I don't think it's unrealistic to think that the Big Ten could get 8 or 9 teams in the tournament this year, which is a long way away from what happened last year with Nebraska winning 13 Big Ten games and getting a 5 seed in the NIT. So,
yep. From Hoosier Stuck in Kentucky, talking about the schedule, January is especially brutal, especially that stretch of 4 road games out of 5, all seeming pretty tough. What are your great, just okay, and bad projections over these 8 games? So, for example, he says great would be 7-1 or 6-2, depending on if IU can win at home against Michigan. Just okay would be 5-3 or 4-4. Bad would be 2-6, winning only the Illinois and Nebraska home games. So as you look at that, and just a rundown of what that is, it's home against Illinois, at Michigan, at Maryland, home against Nebraska, at Purdue, at Northwestern, home against Michigan, at Rutgers. So those 8 games, what do you think is kind of good, okay, bad in terms of record?
I'm looking at that now. I'm trying to think. Illinois.
I mean, I almost feel like if you go 5-3, you would feel really, really good about that stretch.
I mean, you got to win the home games, right? Even the Michigan game at home. I mean, let's see. Illinois at home, Nebraska at home, Michigan at home.
Nebraska and Michigan, Michigan's number 4, Nebraska's number 14. So, yes, you should win those, but those will be tough.
I think if you go 4-4,
that's what I mean. If you're 5-3,
if you go 4-4, I think you're okay. I mean, if you go 3-5, it's not good, but it's not the end of the world. If you go any worse than that, it's obviously bad because that means you probably only beaten Illinois and Rutgers in that stretch. But yeah, I mean, looking at the percentages, the ones that you kind of look at and say are Michigan on the road is tough. I don't buy that Maryland's the 28th best team, so I think that's a game they could win. Purdue is another one that's probably overranked right now in Ken Palm. To me, that's more like a 55-45 game, maybe a little bit in favor of Purdue. And the Northwestern game is another one that's kind of a toss. I mean, there's a lot of toss-up games. That's why I kind of say you have to be a little cautious now. And saying that Indiana's going to win every close game, because I think there's going to be a ton of kind of barn burners once league play happens, and just the kind of the percentages say that they're not going to win every one of those. And to this point, besides Arkansas, they have. So
if someone just gave you 4-4 right now, said you can take 4-4 right now, or you can take your chances from an IU fan perspective, would you take 4-4? 5-3 is easy. I would take that in a heartbeat. But would you take 4-4?
Can I pick the 4?
No, you just get 4-4.
Yeah, I'd take 4. I'd take 4 because okay. If it's 4-4, that at minimum that means you're going to have beaten Illinois, Rutgers,
and you're going to get at least 2 more Tier A victories than there somewhere.
Exactly. So yes,
it doesn't matter who it is. Yeah, I would
take 4-4.
I would take it in a heartbeat.
I think if they go 4-4, so then at that point they would be 6-4 with 10 to play, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 home games in that stretch.
Yep.
And the road games would be Michigan State, Minnesota, Iowa, and Illinois.
Mm-hmm. You can get some work done there.
Yeah. I would take 4-4.
Yeah, and hopefully, the team should be better. So, yes. So we look, as a fan base, let's just prepare ourselves for January, okay? We all just need to get ready. There's probably going to be some carnage. There are probably going to be some losses. Let's just get through it. Let's get through it to February and March when things should get better.
Yeah,
I'll try to remind us of this in January when we've lost a couple in a row and we're freaking out. What were you going to say?
I said I just don't know how many of these teams are like actually good. Like Maryland, I don't know how good they are. I don't know how good Northwestern is. I mean, Northwestern's obviously played Indiana tough once, but I didn't think Indiana played particularly well that game. They also played Michigan tough, but they also have a loss to Fresno State. But besides Michigan State, and Wisconsin,
Nebraska's been pretty good.
State. Yeah, Nebraska. I just don't know how many of those other teams are actually good. But obviously, a lot of them are going to make the tournament. But I feel pretty confident that Indiana's going to be able to finish somewhere in the top 5 or 6 of the league at minimum.
Yeah, I agree. From number one Yogi fan, a new member of the forum, welcome. Now that we're through the meat of the non-conference schedule, what will the non-conference schedule look like for 2019? So you've got the future schedules page at InsideTheHall.com that people can always go to kind of see what the latest is that's known about the future schedule. So what do we know right now about the future schedule?
Well, I know that they're going to play Arkansas at home next year. They're going to play Notre Dame in the Crossroads Classic. They should, keyword should, have a Big Ten ACC Challenge home game, although they did have 2 home in a row before going on the road to Duke this year. So, and then the Gavitt games is, there's only a certain number of times that Indiana's going to play in that through the life of the deal, and they've played in it 3 times now. They played Creighton, they played Seton Hall, and they played Marquette. So there's a chance they could be left out of that next year. But as of right now, that's all we know to this point.
Is there anything else kind of like on the back burner, or anything that might be in the works in terms of like a marquee non-conference game?
Not that I know of. Obviously, the Louisville series is expired, so I think the logical question is, do they replace that with something like Arizona or Kentucky? I don't know if that's in the works. And obviously 2020, they go to Maui. I was kind of surprised that they weren't announced to be in one of those other early season tournaments like Atlantis next year or something like that. But I think you're going to see some kind of marquee game pop onto the schedule. I think this staff is smart enough to know that you have to challenge yourself in the non-conference schedule. They did a really good job this year building the schedule for the most part. I think playing that Arkansas game was a smart thing. Obviously, some of the things on the schedule are dictated by the league, but overall, I think they've done a pretty solid job of avoiding the sub 300 KenPom teams. Right now, how many do they have on the schedule right now as it stands today?
Good question. I think just the one, because I don't think Montana State's in sub 300, are they? No, Montana State's 302, Chicago State's 347. And who knows where Central Arkansas and Jacksonville are finish up. They're 272 and 293. The thing about this schedule, the one thing that it's kind of missing is the middle, those games against teams in the hundreds. And you kind of thought, UT Arlington or UC Davis would be those teams too, because they've been that recently. But both of those teams are down this year. So,
yeah, Central Arkansas, their league is terrible. I mean, there's like a ton of sub 300 games in their league. So if they just stay above water in league play and win some games, they should hopefully avoid sub 300. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, you mentioned those kind of middle of the road games. Those are just hard to get. I mean, a lot of those teams are also trying to get guarantee games, right? Too, because there's 351 teams, and maybe the top 150 are unable probably to pay teams to come play on their campus in some capacity. Even like the lower conferences, like the Conference USAs of the world, they're probably paying some teams to come play on their campus. So it's just hard to get. One thing I think that would be good, and I think people would like, is to maybe do something like a 2-for-1 with a Ball State or another in-state team. I think everyone kind of, after last year with Fort Wayne and Indiana State, like, don't play these teams. But, remember when Crean did that thing where he played Evansville twice at home, and then in exchange they played in their new arena. I mean, there's some opportunities that I feel like with teams.
I love that. I would love to see us do that.
I don't know who. I mean, you kind of want to make it. You kind of want to schedule it though to like look ahead to like, is this team going to be good that year? You don't really want to go there, so it's like, all right, is Valpo going to be down this year? All right, let's go. Let's play 2-for-1 with Valpo. Let's go. We're going to come to your place the year when you're rebuilding, and we're really good, and then you can come to our place the other 2 years. I think that's kind of how you have to time. But there's enough good programs in the state. I feel like that you could get something going. IUPUI. I mean, who else is there? Indiana State. Obviously, they played Evansville, Fort Wayne. At some point, they have to avenge Fort Wayne, right?
Yes. Yeah. Got to get them back.
2 in a row. It's not like it was just a one-time thing. I mean, that's got to be leaving sour taste in somebody's mouth.
I know. There was a lot of discussion in the thread for when we announced the mailbag about Demezi Anderson. So your thoughts on Demezi, obviously a guy who played a pretty good amount early in the season. Indiana was dealing with injury issues, hasn't played since. Archie did have some interesting comments in his most recent radio show about, really being impressed with Clifton and Jake and Demezi. Sounds like, he wants to get them some time in these upcoming 2 games, which we hope to see. Your thoughts specifically about Demezi Anderson and kind of how he's developed so far. We haven't gotten a chance to see him much, but that's kind of what was expected coming into the season. It seemed like he played more out of necessity than anything else.
Yeah, I kind of went on a mini Twitter rant. I don't know if that was last week when I said something about this team's 8-2, and the only questions I'm getting are why aren't Clifton Moore and Demezi Anderson playing? Like, it's almost like Indiana fans sometimes they always kind of want to look at like what's not happening or what's what could be different, or can we play this guy more, or can we do something different, when it's like, all right, this team's winning right now and they're playing 2 freshmen a ton of minutes. And you look at this roster, right? Throw Jake Forrest, throw Jerome Hunter out and Race Thompson at this point. You basically got 12 guys that are in the mix for minutes. And realistically, you're going to play at the most 9, maybe 10. And so somebody's going to be the odd man out. And that's not a knock on that player. It just means that in terms of their development, where the coaching staff feels like they are, they're going to play the guys they feel are going to help them win games. And that's the kind of the frustrating part. Like, obviously we don't get to watch practice, but that was one of the other things I said is like, I'll defer to the guy who watches practice every day and has seen all these guys play to have the wherewithal to play the right guys. And I don't necessarily think it's something that Demezi or Jake or Clifton's done wrong. I just think kind of any team, there's a pecking order, right? And they're at the bottom of it, and it's up to them to either do something in practice that says, hey, play me more based on this, or wait your turn to get more minutes, right? Guys are going to graduate, they're going to move on, and when it's your turn to kind of step up. I mean, Clifton Moore had his chance at Penn State and came in and did some good things. Demezi Anderson earlier in the season had an opportunity because of some injuries, but I just don't necessarily think that anything like that any of those guys have done is wrong. And I don't necessarily think it's malpractice by the coaching staff either that they're not playing. I just think it's the numbers and how they work out.
Yeah, and the one thing that you'll hear sometimes is, well, let's get them some time, and how are they going to get better if they don't get time on the court to grow? And
when have they had time?
Well,
lately, I mean,
yeah,
had 4 games in a row that have been like ultra competitive, and the 2 non-conference before that were like nip and tuck for a while. I mean, the only games this year they've actually played that have been blowouts are what? The first 2?
The first 2, and Marquette.
And you're not going to, I mean, with a team that can hit threes like Marquette can and has Marcus Howard on the roster, you're not going to empty your bench when you're up 20. You're going to play the whole game and try to score as many points as you can.
No, I agree. And I think the other thing is, like, that's the thing. You can't just, okay, well, let's try and steal a few minutes here in the Northwestern game with these guys. It is at this level, especially when there's so much pressure and every game is so important, those players have to earn that time in practice they don't get the luxury of just getting to go out there and kind of work it out in games and try and build trust in games. They've got to earn that trust in practice before they're ever going to get out there. So, to your point, Clifton did a really nice job with his minutes against Penn State. He made several mistakes, but he also made more plays than we've seen from him in a high-level, opportunity before. And that was great. And Archie said, he looks like one of the most improved players on the team right now. So if he's able to get some minutes here against Central Arkansas, against Jacksonville, or any of these guys, hopefully they can, do something with that. But for the most part, it comes back to practice. We see such a small sliver of what these guys do, over the course of a week. So like I think you got to defer to the coaches and their decision-making based on what they're seeing in practice. All right, let's hit these last few here really quick. Lee Can, Race Thompson. Is he still considered a potential rotation player now? We don't really know what's happening with the injury. We don't know when he'll be back, if at all. Any kind of updates on Race and when he comes back, what to expect from him?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. But everything I've gathered and heard, it sounds like it's a pretty serious injury. That's kind of the other thing. And I don't know if you've gotten these tweets too, Jerod. I've had a couple people say there's got to be more to the story. He shouldn't be out this long with a concussion. And if you do research on concussions, you'll read that it's not a cut and dry thing. Just like certain guys, recover quicker from a torn ACL than others. The brain is obviously the most important part of the body. And anytime there's trauma, there's going to be a lot of caution taken. I mean, the thing with Race is, I'm sure if he was fine and able to be cleared in practice, he would be. I don't think there's anything to it more than he had a pretty significant concussion and it's going to take time to get back from it. And the timing of all this is not great for his potential to help this team, because I don't think after you've kind of built 2 months of the season that you're going to take a guy that's been out with a concussion and all of a sudden throw him in there and say you're going to play major minutes. So I would say his impact, at least from an on-court perspective of this team, is going to be minimal going forward. That's just kind of my read of the situation.
Because by the time he would come back, you're right in the heart of Big Ten play. And then that's not a time to kind of work kinks out.
I don't even know how many games he's played this season. I have to go back.
One. He's played 4 minutes, scored 2 points. I think it was against Montana State.
Okay. So, yeah, he was hurt to start the season, and then he played a little bit, and then he got a concussion. I mean,
yeah,
it's tough. I mean, and I don't know that there's any extra sensitivity from his family to concussions, but we all know that his dad played football for Minnesota. So, it's one of those things now where I just think it's different than 20 or 30 years ago when you just told a guy to get back up and, hey, get back out there, you're fine.
Yeah.
And this is something that can really mess with somebody's livelihood. I remember Justin Warno, and this is baseball, it's different, but he missed like almost a full year with a concussion. And that's a baseball injury where he kind of slid into somebody and got hit in the head the wrong way. And I think the hockey player Sidney Crosby missed a whole hockey season with concussion. I mean, this is serious stuff. I mean, there's a lot more things in life that are important than having Clifton Moore on the basketball court, like his health and well-being.
Race Thompson.
Race Thompson. But yeah. You know what I mean? My point in general is that it's obviously a serious thing, and you definitely want to take your time and make sure that he's 100% ready to play it before you try to get him back.
All right, so here is the final question that we will end on. Since it is the holiday season, Alex, what is the one gift that you would give to Archie if you could give him anything at all? And this question adds, I'm not making this up myself, the question adds, besides a tri-blend hooded sweatshirt from our friends at Hoosier Proud, of course. Those sweatshirts are unbelievable. Have you gotten one of them yet?
No.
They're awesome. I got the one, as I probably said on the ad read, which I'm going to do after we record this. But I
think I meant to ask you this on a previous podcast, and forgive my ignorance, but what is that? What is the?
It's the old Bison logo. I think it's from the 60s or the 70s. They tried it out for a short period of time, but it's an old logo.
So was that like a mascot?
I don't know if they ever actually had a mascot, Galen would know this better than I would. But it was definitely a logo that was used on a lot of different stuff, because there's a buffalo on like the state seal, and there were obviously many buffalo roaming Indiana back in the days, so it is a native animal.
So
but I just think they used it, but it didn't catch on that much.
So is that the material of that sweatshirt just kind of what sets it apart?
It's
because I look at it and I'm like, it just looks comfortable.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. It's really comfortable. It's really soft. It's just great. So, look, I think Archie needs one of the tri-blend hooded sweatshirts. So I know I'm not allowed to say that.
Tell Connor to send him one.
Yeah, we should. He can wear it when he's wiping the floor with his team in a shooting competition. Okay, by the way, there's a quick question for you. Who are you taking if it's a horse tournament? You taking Archie or the field?
Of the team?
Yeah. If he's against the team.
Archie.
I'm taking Archie.
Yeah.
I am too.
And it's not even necessarily because I think he's the best. Well, maybe I do think he's the best shooter out of the whole group, but I also think he would be like one of those guys that's like so competitive that he wouldn't let himself lose.
Yes.
So
I agree completely. It would be like when you're a dad or an older brother, and you are not going to lose to like the young ones. And plus, I mean, he's experienced. He's probably got some shot. He could just go to the free throw line probably and just shoot free throws over and over again and just outlast everybody that way. But he's probably got like some shots, maybe from the elbow off the glass, those old man type shots, that he could just hit over and over again. Yeah, for sure. I've got Archie.
Wow, what would I give him?
Yeah, what would you give Archie? A premium forum subscription?
No, I would give him another perimeter shooter.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking. Are we talking about like a actual thing that we could actually give him? Or are we talking about like hypotheticals? I think we're
just as what's the one gift if you could give him anything?
Jerod, even though we've been trained not to talk about hypotheticals, this is a hypothetical.
Right.
But I would say better ball handling or another perimeter shooter. I'm gonna have to pass back to you before I start laughing too hard. But I would say they're a better ability to take care of the ball or another guy that can shoot from the perimeter.
I would give him. I would kind of want to do a little bit of reconnaissance and try to figure out what's his favorite restaurant in Bloomington, or what's a great restaurant in Bloomington that he hasn't been to yet, because all the work that we know how hard coaches work, all the work that he's been putting in with the team, all the work that he's been putting in on the recruiting trail. I would try and get it. I would get him like a gift card to a great restaurant in Bloomington that is his favorite or that he hasn't been to, for he and his wife. Have a nice night out. Don't think about basketball. Don't worry about basketball. Just get away from it for a little while. That's what I would give him. But I would need to do a little bit of research first to try and figure out what the best gift card would be.
Another idea just popped into my head. A commitment from Keion Brooks.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
I think you would like that.
I think so.
See, you're going with more practical things. I mean,
the basketball ones, yeah, those are pretty obvious. I think you stated them. So, yeah. And I would give him a tri-blend hooded sweatshirt to wear on his night out on the town.
Yeah. That'd be interesting. So,
all righty. Well, happy holidays to everybody who is listening. Merry Christmas. And this will be our last episode before Christmas. Man, Christmas is Tuesday. It's coming up fast. So we're going to record again. We already set this.
Next Thursday?
Yeah, next Thursday we're going to record again. So we'll have had 2 games in between now and then. So we'll talk about any reactions that we had to those games and start looking forward to the resumption of Big Ten play, which will come fast and furious after the new year. So we look forward to that. But we wish everybody a very Merry Christmas. And we look forward to talking with you when we get back.
Thanks, everybody. We appreciate all the support, and Merry Christmas, and we'll talk to you next week.
Yep. Thank you for listening to this episode of Podcast on the Brink. We always appreciate you being here. Remember to join me and my co-hosts for more IU basketball talk at assemblycall.com, and visit Alex over at InsideTheHall.com for complete coverage of Indiana basketball. If you want to support Podcast on the Brink, here is the single best way to do it. Tell anyone you know who loves IU hoops about us and suggest that they subscribe. Podcast on the Brink can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere else podcasts are available. Tell your social media followers, email your friends, text your family members. For weekly discussion about IU basketball, they need to be subscribed to Podcast on the Brink. We'll talk to you next time. Go Hoosiers.